The resemblance was undeniable. As CEO Marcus Winters stared at the little girl with his same distinctive hazel eyes and dimpled smile, a chill ran down his spine. "Why does your daughter look like me?" he demanded of James, the quiet new hire who'd been working in IT for just 3 months. The crowded company picnic fell silent, all eyes on the two men and the confused 7-year-old between them. James took a deep breath before answering, "Because she's your brother's daughter." If you're moved by stories of unexpected family connections and second chances, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more emotional true stories that will touch your heart. James Chen never planned to be a single father. At 34, his life revolved around his daughter Lily and keeping their small world intact. After his wife Sarah's death 3 years ago, he'd become both mother and father to their little girl, navigating grief while trying to give her a normal childhood. The job at Winters Innovations had been a godsend: better pay, better benefits, and a chance to finally provide the stability Lily deserved. Marcus Winters had built his tech empire from nothing, becoming one of the youngest CEOs in Silicon Valley at just 41. Known for his brilliant mind and demanding leadership style, few knew the personal tragedies that had shaped him. 10 years earlier, his younger brother David had died in a car accident, leaving a hole in Marcus's life that success couldn't fill. The annual company picnic was James's first major social event with the firm. He debated bringing Lily but ultimately decided it would be good for her to meet other children. They arrived late, James nervously introducing his daughter to colleagues while she clung to his hand. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Lily whispered, tugging at his sleeve. "Let's get you something to eat, sweetheart," James replied, leading her toward the buffet tables. That's when Marcus Winters first saw them. He'd been in conversation with board members when someone, caught his peripheral vision. A little girl with familiar features that stopped him mid-sentence. He excused himself and walked directly toward them, his usual composure shattered. "Who is this?" Marcus asked, his voice strained as he approached James. "Sir, this is my daughter, Lily," James answered, confused by his boss's intensity. Marcus knelt to the child's level, studying her face. The resemblance was striking: the same eyes, the same smile, even the same way she tilted her head questioningly. It was like looking at a female version of his late brother. "Why does your daughter look like me?" The question hung in the air, drawing attention from nearby employees. James hesitated, then spoke the truth that would change everything: "Because she's your brother's daughter." The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. "That's impossible. My brother died 10 years ago." "David Winters was my wife's first husband," James explained quietly. "They were married briefly before the accident. Sarah was pregnant when he died, but she never told his family. She was young and scared, and David had mentioned that his family was complicated." Marcus staggered back slightly. "You're telling me this child is my niece? That I have family I never knew about?" Lily, sensing the tension, pressed closer to her father. "Daddy, who is this man?" James knelt beside his daughter. "Lily, this is Mr. Winters. He was your birth father's brother. That makes him your uncle." The little girl's eyes widened as she looked between the two men. "I have an uncle?" The crowd around them had grown silent, witnessing what felt like a scene from a movie unfolding before them. Marcus's assistant tried to disperse the onlookers, but the damage was done. The CEO's personal life had just been exposed in the most public way possible. "We should talk privately," Marcus said, his voice barely controlled. "My office." "Now." James nodded, taking Lily's hand. "Of course." The walk to the main building was tense, with Lily asking innocent questions that neither man was prepared to answer. Once inside Marcus's expansive office, James asked a kind receptionist to watch Lily in the waiting area with some coloring books. "Explain everything," Marcus demanded once they were alone. "How did you meet Sarah? Why didn't she ever contact David's family? How do I know you're telling the truth?" James sank into a chair, the weight of the past heavy on his shoulders. Sarah and I met at a grief support group 2 years after David died. She was still struggling with raising Lily alone. We became friends first, then more. I adopted Lily legally when we married. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to photos. Sarah kept everything, their marriage certificate, photos of them together. She even had letters David wrote her, talking about you. Marcus took the phone, his hands trembling slightly as he swiped through images of his brother, smiling, happy, with a young woman he'd never met. In one photo, David had his hand on Sarah's still flat stomach, his face alight with joy. "Why didn't she come to us?" Marcus asked, his voice breaking. "We would have helped her, helped them both." James looked down. "David told her that your family had rejected his choice to pursue music instead of joining the family business. He said you hadn't spoken in months before he died." Sarah was 22, pregnant and terrified. She thought approaching wealthy strangers who'd been estranged from their son would only bring more pain. Marcus closed his eyes, memories flooding back. The arguments with David, the ultimatums, the harsh words he could never take back. He'd been so focused on building the company, so certain his brother would eventually come around to his way of thinking. Then came the phone call about the accident, and suddenly none of it mattered anymore. "I've missed 7 years of her life," Marcus whispered. 7 years I could have been there for my brother's child. "She's had a good life," James assured him. "Sarah was an amazing mother, and after she died of cancer 3 years ago, I've done everything I can to keep Lily happy and secure." Marcus looked up sharply. "Cancer? Was there anything, could I have helped?" James shook his head. "It was aggressive. By the time they diagnosed it, there wasn't much anyone could do." The two men sat in silence, the weight of missed opportunities and parallel grief connecting them in an unexpected way. "I want to know her," Marcus finally said. "I want to be part of her life." "I understand," James replied carefully. "But Lily has already lost so much. Her birth father, her mother, she's finally feeling stable again. I need to know your intentions aren't just a temporary interest that will disappear when the novelty wears off." Marcus bristled at first, then recognized the protective instinct of a father. "You're right to be cautious. But she's the only family I have left. The only part of David that remains in this world. And you're her only blood relative," James acknowledged. "I won't keep her from knowing you, but we need to do this carefully, at a pace that doesn't overwhelm her." They agreed to start slowly, dinner the following weekend, where Lily could get to know her uncle in a comfortable setting. As they prepared to leave the office, Marcus stopped James with a hand on his arm. "Why did you come to work for my company? Was it to tell me about Lily?" James shook his head. "Honestly, I didn't make the connection at first. Winters is a common enough name, and Sarah rarely talked about David's family. It was only when I saw your photo in the company materials that I realized who you were. By then, I'd already accepted the position." "And you still came to work here, knowing I was David's brother?" "I needed the job," James said simply. "And part of me thought maybe it was time for Lily to know her father's family. I just hadn't figured out how to approach you yet." When they returned to the waiting area, Lily had created an elaborate drawing of a family, a tall man labeled Daddy, a smaller figure labeled Me, and a woman with wings labeled Mommy in Heaven. She'd added another figure after their conversation, a tall man with a tie labeled Uncle. Marcus knelt beside her chair. "That's a beautiful drawing, Lily." She looked up at him with David's eyes. "Daddy says you're my daddy's brother. Did you know my first daddy?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Yes, I did. He was my little brother, and I loved him very much. Would it be okay if I told you some stories about him sometime?" Lily nodded solemnly. "I'd like that. Mommy told me some stories, but she said she didn't know all of them." "I know all the stories from when he was your age," Marcus promised. Like how he once tried to build a rocket in our backyard and accidentally set the garden hose on fire. Lily giggled, a sound so reminiscent of David's laugh that Marcus had to blink back tears. The next few months brought profound changes to all their lives. Marcus, who had always defined himself by his work, found himself rearranging meetings to attend Lily's school play. James, who had been carrying the burden of single parenthood alone, discovered the relief of having someone else who cared deeply about his daughter's well-being. And Lily blossomed with the knowledge that her family was bigger than she'd thought, collecting stories about her birth father like precious gems. It wasn't always smooth. Marcus sometimes overstepped, making decisions without consulting James. James occasionally felt threatened by the bond forming between Lily and her wealthy, influential uncle. There were tense conversations and necessary boundaries established. 6 months after the company picnic, Marcus invited James to his office again. "I've been thinking about family," Marcus began. "About what David would want for his daughter." James tensed, preparing for some kind of custody discussion. Instead, Marcus surprised him. "I'd like to establish a trust for Lily's education, but I want your input on how it's structured. And I'd like to create a position for you heading our new IT security division, if you're interested. The hours would be more flexible for parenting." "Why would you do that?" James asked cautiously. "Because you're a talented professional who deserves recognition," Marcus answered. "And because you've been an extraordinary father to my niece when you didn't have to be. David would have liked you, I think." James considered the offer. "I appreciate that. But I need to know this isn't about trying to control us or buy our affection." Marcus smiled ruefully. "I've learned something important these past months, watching you with Lily. Family isn't about control. It's about support. I spent years trying to control David, and I lost precious time with him. I won't make that mistake with his daughter, or with you." A year after their first meeting, the three of them stood together at David's grave. It was Lily's first visit, something James had been hesitant about until she started asking questions about where her first daddy was buried. Lily placed flowers on the headstone, then stepped back between the two men, taking each of their hands in hers. "Do you think he knows?" she asked, looking up at Marcus. "That we found each other?" Marcus exchanged a glance with James over her head. "I think he does, sweetheart. And I think he's very happy about it." As they walked back to the car, Lily skipping ahead, James turned to Marcus. "You know, when you asked me that day why she looked like you, I was terrified of what would happen next." "And now?" Marcus asked. James watched his daughter, who was now pointing out a butterfly to her uncle's driver. "Now I think it was the best thing that could have happened to her. To all of us." Marcus nodded, his eyes on the little girl who had brought unexpected healing to his life. "Family finds a way," he said quietly. "Even when we try our best to mess it up." The company picnic the following summer was a different experience entirely. James, now heading the IT security division, moved comfortably among colleagues. Marcus, known for his previous aloofness, was seen giving his niece a piggyback ride across the lawn. And Lily, secure in the knowledge that she was deeply loved, introduced herself to curious onlookers with confident clarity. "I'm Lily Chen Winters. I have 2 daddies, one in heaven, and one right here. And that's my Uncle Marcus. He's teaching me chess, but I beat him sometimes." Sometimes the most unexpected connections lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. A chance resemblance, an honest answer, and the courage to embrace a complicated truth had transformed 3 separate lives into one unconventional but unbreakable family. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that celebrates the unexpected ways families come together and the power of second chances. Remember that sometimes the most difficult questions lead to the most healing answers.